was at that age. And I'm just already so proud of you to be where you are, and that I'm able to share some things. And again, hopefully give you something that you can take with you that will have impact, inspire you, and help you to continue to accomplish unprecedented things. And when I was asked to share my journey, I initially was starting with, I grew up here and then I was here and there, but I decided to wrap it up in a different way and tell my journey through a framework that has always worked for me, because part of my journey is to also, as I share it with you, to share lessons learned and how that can work. And one of the biggest lessons learned for me that I hope I'm able to articulate is that life isn't about so much our achievements as it is how we experience those achievements, how we experience life, and how we're thinking about how life is happening for us versus to us. So is it happening to you? Is it happening through you, for you, by you? How are you owning that and creating life at your age on your own terms and aligning just with the natural order of what's happening for you and not fitting into a box that society is absolutely going to try to determine for you? Part of my work is breaking all those boxes that they try to put us in. So excited to share this information that I hope helps with you as I really sit and reflect on my journey in life, which I encourage you to do at your age. I always have had a diary since I was 8. So if you don't have a diary, definitely get one because you'll start to recognize the magic things that happen in our day-to-day. And we do have little things that happen every single day that are magic, but there's things that can get in the way of us seeing that magic if we're not focused on the experience. And again, a lot of this happens when we start to think about what society tells us to be, what the barriers are, what the boundaries are that are placed upon us. And for me, when I started doing that, it really drove me to focus on the A-list. And I'm sure you've all heard the term of let's be on the A-list. Let's do things that are going to get us on the A-list. And that typically signifies winning, right? It's about achievement, all these perfect things that are going to make for an all-encompassing, purposeful life if we have the A-list. If you follow it, life is going to be A for amazing. But through my experience, what I started to recognize, and I will definitely get into more specifics around that, is that the A-list can be very artificial. And it doesn't really jive with the dynamics when I think about us being human beings, when I think about you at your age, or when I think about me as a woman at all ages. As we focus on just achievements and trying to be on this A-list, it really can get in the way of how we experience life. And one of the things that I'm happy to be able to share with you, given where you are, is that if you stay focused on the A-list and only the A-list, it can leave you feeling very empty because you start to get focused on checking these things off of a box, and you can become defined by that and you can become limited by that. And that is something that I started to experience. And it wasn't until I was in my late 30s, early 40s, that I really started wrapping my mind around it's about the experience and how we experience life. And so this has happened to me several times. To share a little bit about who I am and my journey, I was raised in East St. Louis. I am not sure how many of you have heard of East St. Louis, but it is a predominantly African-American, low economic city. It's actually one of the poorest cities in the country. And I was raised there by 3 single African-American women, my mother, my grandmother, and my aunt. And so much of what I experienced, and I'm going to keep going back to experience over achievement, truly helped shape who I am today by being raised by them. Even from my experience thinking that it was a norm, given where I grew up, to be raised by women versus being in a 2-family household. Part of my childhood, I had the privilege of being part of the city's gifted program, which means I had exposure to a lot of things that some of you may actually take for granted. Being in a gifted program in East St. Louis meant that I had new books, that I had air conditioning, that I had field trips and computers. But with all of that, there was still a lot of pressure, even at a young age, even at your age, to live life on the A-list. I was the first in my family to go to college, so my family looked to me to validate basically the family's success. I usually was top of my class, whether it was in grade school or middle school, so there also was a lot of pressure for me at a young age to have a certain level of achievement or even aspirations, and that came from my family. It came from teachers. It even came from classmates. When it was from classmates, it wasn't always in the nicest way. I was kind of bullied at times for being smart, being a nerd, being all those type of things. And sometimes I just didn't want to do certain things, right? But that pressure was on me to live these A-list expectations, external validation or validation from other people, appreciation from other people defining what was successful for me, that could easily at times put me in a position to act in ways that I didn't really want to act in, or do things that I didn't really want to do as far as activities or the different things that I got involved in. And I didn't always feel very good about it because it just felt very arbitrary for me versus me being who I truly was. And even today, with all that I've actually achieved on the A-list and all the experiences that I've had, I have people come to me, and I'm a great diversity and inclusion leader, but I still have people come and say, I'm surprised you're not a doctor. Because clearly what I've achieved or experienced still hasn't been enough when they look at their A-list and where I am today. So what does all of this matter as I talk to you for a few more minutes? It's again, how we are experiencing life, which I am going to give you a framework to think about, and how we take life in. So for me, what's helped me is, instead of focusing on being on the A list, I live my life experiencing life through the B list. And so there's a couple of B's that I want to share with you, and then I'm going to give you some examples on that I think will help you as you think about your life. And I'm almost now tempted to say I would love some Q&A for them at the end of this, just to hear how you experience B's and just how you're experiencing life, but we'll play it by ear. Okay, so the first B on the B list, as you're thinking about experiencing life through the B list versus being on the A list, is bumps. So and this is where I wish we could have some dialogue, but you'll get to a point where you hit a few bumps in your journey. And I can remember being your age and questioning, who I am I doing the right things at my age? What's my purpose? Even as an adult, sometimes I still have moments where I think, am I on the right track? Have I made the right decisions? And this is actually going to be a good thing for you as you experience these things. It's going to feel like a disruption, or a little shaky, but it's absolutely necessary for you as you continue to evolve as young women. When I think about the work that I do for Discover for Diversity and Inclusion and all of the work that I do in the community, I talk a lot about how important it is for us to experience bumps, for things to get shaken up a little bit in our lives, that if we're looking to grow and evolve and expand in the things that we want to do, it's necessary to have some disruption, some interruption, and sometimes for things to feel like they've completely erupted for us to grow and evolve. And it can come in many different ways, but when you experience these bumps, know that it should come, it will come, and it's okay that you're experiencing these bumps as you do, even when it doesn't feel that way. And sometimes those bumps don't feel good. They can feel uneven as you're riding over them and very unpleasant, but again, they are absolutely necessary. I have experienced bumps in my life, and a lot of times when I hit a bump, it shakes my confidence, and that has happened in shaking my confidence as I stand as a woman, as I stand as an African American, as I stand as a mom, even as someone who, and you guys probably women don't even know this show, but I am obsessed with the Twilight Zone, which is like a quirky thing about me, but I have experienced shakiness and bumps in my confidence because of that as well. They have happened throughout my entire life. As I mentioned, grew up in East St. Louis, raised in a household of 3 African American women. I am a mother of 2. I have a 12-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. I am in the 40s plus club, and I have a lot of, like I said, quirky things about me that have made me feel like an outsider in different circles. And because of that, it's created bumps in my life, sometimes seemingly small, but they were things that would make me feel uncomfortable. And I'm sure in different situations that you've been in, you've had moments of feeling uncomfortable. This is natural. They were bumps. As I think about being at your age, again, being in school and, you know, my mom worked a lot, so I didn't have the same family experience as a lot of people. Early on, I felt bumps because I was sometimes in honor classes when a lot of my friends were not in honor classes, so that made me feel shaky. And even as I continue to progress, I've had bumps in my confidence being the only woman on a leadership team, being an only African American on different teams. And because I look much younger, I think, you may not think that. You may think I look 42. Most people don't think I'm 42. So even that, when I show up, you know, people don't think I'm as credible or that I know as much as I know. And that's actually shaken my confidence at times in my job and throughout my schooling. You know, at a young age, I started off in schools where the teachers looked like me, most of my classmates looked like me. And then in high school, I switched to a different school where there were a lot more people and teachers that did not look like me. And that actually shook my confidence, where I felt like an outsider and started to question if I belonged. The same thing happened in college, where there were different standards of beauty. So, you know, with my skin color, with my hair, there were different standards of beauty when I went to college. And so I questioned if I was pretty enough and if I could be in different circles. As I mentioned, I came from a low economic status background. And so most of my friends in college had parents that were able to give them money and help them out. And I didn't have that same situation. And so I felt bumped in my confidence, wondering if I would experience college the same as a lot of my friends. But you know, what's been important for me is recognizing that these were bumps to help me grow. They didn't always feel that way. I didn't always recognize that. And that's why I'm so happy to share it with you. I'm also an introvert, so at times I can be very quiet. I don't know how many of you are also introverts and sometimes can be quiet, but that has left me feeling like an outsider. But what I've been grateful for on my journey and what I want to continue to express throughout the different B's is, as you're going through bumps, start to appreciate what it is that's being bumped and how you can actually start to leverage that for your strength. Luckily, I've been a quick study in a lot of my situations and have been able to flip what felt like a weakness or what felt like making me an outsider, leveraging that to help me understand that I bring a uniqueness to the table and that this experience is actually in turn helping and fueling some of my accomplishments and some of the things that I've achieved on the A-list. But it wasn't until, again, I recognized these are bumps and these are bumps that are working on my behalf that I should actually experience for my growth, where I learned to appreciate them. So bumps on the B list may hurt, can sometimes leave you feeling a little bruised, but are absolutely necessary for you to grow. And the other B, or the next B on the B list, you have your bumps, and then you can have bounces. And the bounces can be shaky. So when you have a bump, it can be abrupt, it can bring a jolt to your life and really kind of wake you up depending on the experience. But bouncing in life, the next B has a lot more motion to it, right? You can bounce up, you can bounce down, you can bounce around, but the point is, you are now moving. You are making change in life, and that's what matters. The bumpiest or the bounciest time I've experienced in my life is actually my entire career. I don't know how much that sentence makes sense for you, but I've bounced a lot in my careers. I haven't stayed in an organization more than 2 years, and I'm not advocating this. Don't bounce from job to job. This is why I don't sit on career panels. But what I'm saying is, as you go through life, it's really important to move in life and to move with life, to look at the situations for what they are, accept them, and use them as an opportunity to bounce to what's next in life for you. A lot of times when I bounced, it was because when I started bouncing in life, it was because I felt like an outsider based on my age, based on my race, my gender, the fact that I'm a mother. or I bounced when I would realize I was being treated unfairly simply because of where I grew up, and people feeling a certain way about me being from East St. Louis. And then there were times where I bounced simply because I felt like it was necessary for me to evolve. I had been in a situation where I was no longer growing, where I felt like I knew all that I needed to know. And so I used that as an opportunity to bounce. Now, I'll say, and especially in childhood, you can't always bounce from your situations when you're feeling unhappy about something or feeling some disruption. But what I can tell you is that the situations or the things that are going to define you the most are when you choose to bounce, when you have a choice in where you are going to bounce from one place to the next. That is something that I've recognized greatly, is that my choice and how I respond to experiences, that's what defines who I am, not the situations where I don't have control. So always keep that in mind as well. And again, going back to this, not all disruption is bad. When I think about the bounces that I've made, the moments that I've been an outsider, they have actually led me on this amazing journey for my career through all the moments that have sometimes hurt me or left me feeling, questioning who I am as a person, have created this passion for the work that I do around diversity and inclusion, around creating space for people, creating cultures where people can bring their best selves to work, creating space so that when you're ready to walk in corporate America, there's no question about your identity. You can bring whoever you want to the table and thrive in those environments. That's the type of work that I focus on. And I've gotten to this place because of the bumps, because I've allowed myself to bounce in life and really taken the experience and what it's bringing for me. It's given me that strength, and it's given me a desire to love to take risks. You know, as you can in the situations that you're presented with, I would definitely say take a lot of risks. Because if you're complacent and if you're living constantly with no change, life can be very boring. It can feel very binding for you. So I encourage you to take the bumps and also to make sure that you're bouncing along in life as well. And as you do that, the next B that I want to share with you as part of my journey that has helped me a lot with overcoming different things is to give myself a boost. And this is where you're really honoring who you are and humbling yourself and really thinking about where you need to improve. Where do you need to increase in certain areas, or where do you need to decrease in certain areas? It has caused me to look at the choices that I make. It's caused me to look at my circle of influence. And by that, I mean the friends that I'm around, the cultures that I'm in, and deciding, are these the things that I want to keep for me? Are they helping me to grow? Are they helping me to develop? Are they empowering me in any shape or form? And if the answer is no, then I find myself and I kind of go through a checklist to decrease those circumstances, those choices, that circle of influence. And I do this on a regular basis because I find it helps to help me maintain my balance, help me to maintain my peace, and help me to continue to develop. And as you think about your development, as I've thought about it throughout my career and my journey, I'm always thinking about development that brings me balance. I don't just develop in things just to anymore. As a child in middle school and high school, I developed in a lot of areas that people told me that I should, based on what they thought I should be, based on what they thought that would make me successful. But as I've gotten older and gone on my journey, I always think about development and do what's going to make sense for me. So I encourage you to always think about where you can give yourself a boost as far as a decrease. If there's certain, like I said, circles or circumstances or choices that maybe you need to change, or where you can give yourself an increase. Where do you need to develop a little bit more? Or where can you ask for help or support? I know for me, growing up in the household that I was in and in the different circles and environments that I was in, asking for help was seen as a weakness. And I have learned that asking for help, especially reaching out to other women, as you think about reaching out to other young girls, it's a true source of strength. It's a true source of empowerment for you, as well as the women that are helping you. So as you think about the boost, give yourself time and respect to understand, what it is that you need, what it is that's going to help you, what it is that currently isn't helping you, and respect what you can do for yourself, but also bring people in and allow them to support you and help you as well. That has been critical in my journey, critical also in why I do the work that I do, because I love being someone that can support and help to bring out the best and provide a boost to other people. And so as you're thinking about that, giving yourself a boost, you're having all these revelations and understanding about yourself and who you are as young women, what's going to start to happen is you'll experience the next B on the B list, which is build. And this is just really thinking about how you're building yourself, the steps that you've taken now to increase or decrease where needed is helping you to build and become a very strong young woman. As you sit here even today, you are a better build from where you started. Being a part of this program, reading the book that you're reading, all of that is helping you to have a better build on the B list. So continue to evolve this. And I would say, don't waste any opportunity or circumstance to build. Every situation that you are in is going to present itself, even if it seems extremely mundane and extremely small, to help you to grow and build and to become a better person. And this comes with starting to understand the importance of experience and just shifting that perspective. So do you see delays as an example as a disappointment, or are they a detour to the unexpected and giving you something that you weren't thinking about before? Or if you find a situation boring, is it boring or is it an opportunity to appreciate something that maybe you typically didn't appreciate before? Start thinking about where can you learn something new, even if in the moment it doesn't make sense. I cannot tell you how many pieces of information I can get throughout the day that doesn't make sense at the time, but later on in life, I'm able to pull that information because it's something that I've taken in, I've let it imprint and inscribe on me, and it's created a better build for me to use, maybe not in that moment, but at times later in life. And, going back to some of the other B's around the bumps and the bounces and the boosts, sometimes it is hard to think about how you can build yourself. I can tell you in 2019, which was just last year and feels like forever ago, I had hit some very hard bumps and was just bouncing all around as I went through a divorce. I lost my grandmother and I had to relinquish my cat that I had had for 14 years. And all this happened within a 30-day time span. So I'm thinking, how can I build myself with all of this going on? But I can tell you what helps with staying focused on the build when all of that is happening is just staying focused on your goals, staying focused on your dreams that you have on your heart. I know they're there, and you'll see the purpose truly in the B's that you are experiencing. So much of this continues to allow me to connect my build and how I've appreciated the experience of my bumps, my bounces, and my boosts have actually allowed me to build these types of stories that I can interweave into talks like this with you. Earlier today, I was talking to 300 leaders, and I was able to intertwine different personal stories there. That's my build, and bringing it to the table to help others with their build as well. So there's always purpose in what you're experiencing, and a lot of times that purpose is to help others in some way, shape, or form based on the build that you're creating through your experience. And so as you build, as you get beyond barriers, blocks, and become all of who you are, what's going to be important for you is the next two B's, which is or just one B, which is to begin to believe in yourself. Because this is going to be your motivation. It's going to be your gas, your everything that's going to help you in manifesting your purpose. The purpose behind the bumps, the purpose behind the bounce, the catalyst for the build that you're creating. Believe, and then believe some more. And I can tell you, Even with all that I have achieved, the experience of believing in myself has sometimes been some of the most isolating experiences for me, some of the most challenging experiences for me, to actually believe in all that I'm saying about myself and believe that I can accomplish all that's being put before me. To believe all that my experiences are telling me that I can handle, that I can overcome, that I'm worthy, that I'm able, that I'm brilliant even. Even preparing for this, I got a little nervous and just thinking about, am I going to have the right message to share and engage and inspire? Because the D list is always going to show up as you're starting to believe and understand who you are. And that's the D list of doubt and discouragement and disappointment. And that's fine, right? Sometimes people will come in the form of doubt, discouragement, disappointment, and with the best of intent, giving us the best of advice to tell us who we are and what we should be doing, and that's great. But sometimes there can be a lot of focus on the difficulties versus the possibilities. And so I say to you, as this comes in different forms, and I don't mean your parents know best. I'm a mom, so we never come in the form of the D list. We're always here to support you and empower you. But think about what's best for you. Believe anyway, despite the discouragement, despite the doubt, despite the disappointment that you may be feeling in whatever situation it is. And I can tell you, whatever it is that you're feeling is completely validated. But I ask you to believe anyway. It is a habit to breed. It is a habit that I have had to breed over the years. I have gotten stuck on the D list sometimes for days. But the more you can interrupt that with the belief in yourself, the more you can have that very breakthrough with a B list mentality of understanding this is just a bump, this is just a bounce, I'm going through my build, the shorter those disappointments are going to be that you experience. I'll never be one to stand here and say that life is going to be easy. It's complex, but in the most beautiful and dynamic way. And there really is always purpose for what we're going through for us to bring our best to the table. As cheesy as that sounds, it is absolutely true. In high school, I was discouraged for different reasons because of my color. As I mentioned, I have been discouraged in the workplace because I am a mom. I have had my own doubts after I was divorced because that was a key part of my identity. It takes a lot to believe, and that's okay. It takes a lot for us to get to where we are, for us to reach these great achievements and these great places in life, and for us to experience all that we need to experience. So believe anyway. Believe when you don't want to. Sometimes for me, it's going and writing down affirmations and read those affirmations even when you're sad, because there is power in writing down what it is you need to believe about yourself, what it is you want to accomplish, and going back and looking at that every day. So that's a little tip to help with the believing piece. And as you take time with this, the final B that I'll share with you is to breathe and be. That is something that has been very powerful for me. As you go through the B list, and it's not in an order by any means. You may have a bump, and then you may have a build, and then you may go back and have a bounce. But through all of this, make sure that you're breathing and being, because you are equipped and you are able to handle the bumps. You do have a bump that's ready and equipped to handle the bounce, and take time to cater yourselves for the boost. This is the things that have worked for me. And it's important for us as women, especially young women, especially at your age, to breathe and be in who you are and in everything that you are, to get exposed to different things and expose yourself, because I assure you, and I've learned this over the years, the world needs everything that you have to offer in some way, shape, or form. It all matters, even when the moments are uncomfortable. And there will be moments, like I said, in life where it's uncomfortable until it isn't. It doesn't stay uncomfortable because you're building, you're going through a bump, you're going through a bounce. So be vulnerable, be open with who you are, and to receive what is yours, because as we move through life, and again, especially as women, the way society is set up, although it's changing so drastically, and I love it, you won't get what you deserve, and you won't have your best in life if you aren't bringing your best to the table. So own who you are, appreciate the bumps, the bounce, the boosts. All of these experiences are forming a very strong base for you to stand on. And I speak to that from personal testimony, that it has allowed me to rise taller in who I am as a woman, who I am as Khalilah Lyons, and how I deliver every day. Because we're not meant to be complacent human beings. We are meant to evolve and experience different things. And it helps us to expand our perspective and how we see life and how we can offer to life. So allow this as you walk into your destiny. And I'm sure some of you already know what your destiny is. It's sitting quietly on your heart. So own that, and own that as you are experiencing the B list. I have been on the A list. I have achieved many things. I have had an amazing life despite some of the bumps and the bounces down and the boosts that have needed a decrease. I have been affirmed many times by people, and I've been celebrated for being a wife, being a mom, being an executive, being someone who has been able to rise out of a low socioeconomic background, you know, growing up in a poor neighborhood and where I am today. And all of that has felt good, getting those things on the A list for sure. But I've also had things on the A list that have left me with a sense of abandonment, absence. My accomplishments at times, while feeling great and appearing great, have left me feeling abated. Because the thing about the A list, and again, I'm not saying the A list is bad, but it can come with finalities where you're left with now what, if that's all you're focused on, or it can feel fleeting, like 1 minute you're here on the A list and then the next minute you're not. So what has moved me and what has helped me to truly be who I am and live my truth is to think about the experience and the impact that I'm having through experience, really experiencing life through the B list versus being on the A list. So again, it's not easy, but we are magical as women. And so I'm sharing this with you, not to say, go live life through the B list, everything's gonna be great, but to provide you with a roadmap and to let you know that despite it all, what you're doing is right, who you are is okay, and you are enough as you go through whatever it is that you're going through every day. You're powerful, your journey is powerful. It truly is a beautiful thing. It's a brave thing. And if you start to journal, you'll start to see how that has happened over the course of time. You are protected in your experience and your destiny to evolve as you go. And for me personally, it was really a breakthrough in honoring and appreciating my journey for what it is for me and all that I am. There's no perfect plan to nirvana, no perfect place that we're all going to land. Our life is dynamic, it's engrossed. So let us be bubbly, let us be brave, let us be brilliant. Don't think about how you can move the needle, but just go out as a woman and break the needle. Be, vulnerable, be vibrant, be vigor, which is my little V list, and build that bridge for those that are coming behind you, because I can assure you, no matter what it is that you're doing, even with us being in home all the time, someone is watching and being inspired and impacted by what you do. So with every bump, boost, build, and breath that you take, be all that you can be and go out and just light the world on fire. This is how I have been able to overcome so many of the obstacles that have come my way, how I continue every day to receive overflow and be grateful. I love that we did that activity before we started. And it's because I trust my experience. I trust what I am going through every day, no matter how mundane or even how exciting it may be. I stopped worrying about what achievement looks like, and I started focusing more on the experience and what that feels like for me. I knew my destiny and I moved with it, and I encourage you to do the same. So that is what I have to share, Rachel, and I hope that worked for you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Khalilah. Thank you so much for that beautiful and inspiring message. It's so amazing to hear you and witness you share all the things that you've gone through. I'd love to open it up for questions. If you want to either you can raise your hand, or if you want to just go ahead and unmute, or anything really works. Just let me know if you all have any questions. I know, Khalilah, you had actually mentioned in the part of your talk, you were like, wait, I'm curious about some of your bees. So I'd love to even open it up to you ladies, you young women, about the question that you had originally had, Khalilah.
Yeah, my question was just, if you're open to sharing as you've thought about where you are and where you've been, if there's been any bumps that you've overcome or any bounces that you've gone through, or just anything as you've listened to the B list, if there was a moment where you thought, I could relate because I went through this, and I would love to hear what this is if anyone's open to sharing.
Anyone open? Otherwise, I can share. Well, I know that I've definitely had a bump. My 2019 was actually really challenging and had some bumps in the road as well that I had to overcome. And so one of them was losing my grandmother last September, which was really, really difficult for me. And I was pretty much raised by my mom and my grandma. And so like losing her was one of those things that just really kind of hit me really hard and was really difficult. But, at the end of the day, she was somebody who's made me who I am, was somebody that really helped me embrace all that I am, was always somebody that was like a rock supporting me. And so I always kind of remember all of those different places and scenarios that she was there with me, holding me up, and I just embrace that, that I got to spend as much time with her as I did, and so that was a bump for me.
And we have that in common, so thank you for sharing that. I lost my grandmother in September as well, so, and as I mentioned, she helped to raise me, so similar.
Yeah, very, very similar. And I think a lot of times what we notice about these bees, these bumps, is that we will have so many, things that you don't necessarily think you have in common with somebody. You'll actually notice that it's like, wow, you actually went through that too, or, that you have that in common with me. And it's like, we build these connections with people that we wouldn't otherwise know or that we wouldn't otherwise have. And so I just honor and embrace that. Yes, Ruby, go ahead.
Well, just a bump that I had this year was my parents got divorced, and that was really hard. But I've seen that my parents are much happier, and I've gotten more used to it, and it's okay now. So I feel much better. So it's just something.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ruby.
I greatly appreciate you sharing that too, Ruby, as well, because it definitely shows that you're focusing on the experience. So thank you for being open and sharing that.
Yeah, and Maddie, go ahead, and then Rhea.
So for me, recently, actually, I think just with this whole quarantine and everything, it definitely was a big adjustment. Like, my parents' businesses are shut down and everything at the beginning, so it was just hard to kind of adjust into a new life. But I think some positive things about it were I've been able to spend more time with my family. It's been also kind of a nice time to slow down a little bit, but yeah, so.
Totally, yeah. It's like embracing what you can be grateful for, even throughout these crazy, uncertain times that we're living in.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we have a choice over as well, right? That helps with the experience. So that's great. And I can say my children have greatly appreciated the slowdown summer as well, and not having to go here and there. So I'm always amazed when they're upset that it's Monday. I'm like, it's going to be the same as Sunday. So.
Yeah, and Rhea, go ahead.
I had a bump in the road this past year when I was applying to high schools, and I didn't get into my top choice, but I got into like my second choice, and I I didn't get into the first one, but I realized that the second school was like also a really good school, and I had to like accept the fact that like I didn't get in, but I was still going to like a really good school.
I bet, Rhea, if you start journaling your experience, you're going to look back and see how amazing it is that you're at the school that you're going to be attending. So I would encourage you to do that.
Yeah, at the beginning of quarantine, me and my friend both started journaling, and like I write about my day like at the end.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Rhea. I think exactly what Khalilah said. It's like you're going to notice, like, you're going to look back on it and be like, wow, I'm so glad that I actually ended up going to this school. That something kind of similar-ish happened to me where there was like one school that like a lot of my friends were going to in high school, but I chose to go to a private school in the city that like gave me a lot more of a scholarship to go to. And I ended up like meeting my closest friends here, and I actually ended up getting to experience, Chicago as I went through college. And so I'm so glad that I decided to do that. And I visited like Big Ten, college party schools and all of that, and just realized how grateful I was for this particular experience. And Olivia, I know you private messaged me, so thank you for sharing that bump. I know that you want to keep that in private, but just want to honor you for your honesty and your vulnerability just there too. So thank you. Would anybody else like to share or have any other questions that they would like to open? Other than that, well, this was like such an incredible, experience for a book group. It's definitely been, it's always different when we have a speaker. So Taylor, with not making the cheer team a few months back, not making the leadership team last month, having my great grandmother pass a couple weeks ago, I would love to journal. I have a lot to say, but I tend to start, and after day one, I stop. Any tips on how to continue the writing? Ooh, that's a great question. Oh, I think you're still muted. There we go.
I am. One of the first things that comes to mind is if you would be open, Taylor, to having someone maybe as, I don't know what I would call it at your age, but I call it an accountability partner. So someone who just can every day say, go journal. And my kids actually do this for me because honestly, I don't always want to brush my teeth at night. I get tired by the time I think about it, but knowing that my daughter is going to text me and say, go brush your teeth, helps me to go brush your teeth. So sometimes having an accountability partner does that. And sometimes it is for me just understanding my why behind it. And it sounds like your why is definitely a strong one when I'm looking at what you've experienced and what you should share. And being able to appreciate that as you get older and what you are definitely going to overcome. So I think you have a huge why for journaling too. It's not just a what for you to do, but it has a huge why in who you're going to become. So that can help as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think the why is so, so important. And, coming from somebody that like I journal, but like also not regular, like I would say like I probably try to journal at least 3 times a week. Like that's kind of my goal. So like, starting out with like a small goal that is like, hey, and like also sometimes I would say it's sometimes, at least this helps me. Sometimes if I get like a really nice journal, I think I either have to like have like really profound thoughts into it versus like a not so nice journal. I can just like spit fire and like word vomit onto the page. So just kind of like play with what feels good for you. But you don't have to like have this thing of like, I'm going to journal every single day, but even starting from like something that you're grateful for, or like sharing a story or how your day went, just kind of starting small and then going through that. And I love the accountability partner. I think that's such a great idea because it's like, hey, I journaled today. So either starting it or finding somebody that you'd like to do that with, I think that's such a brilliant idea. Yeah. And so yeah, from here, I know we have another like probably minute or so before we sign off. I actually have another call back to back with the Yay program. So I am so excited. Khalilah, thank you so much again for being here tonight. This was such an incredible call, like truly magical in my eyes. And I know that I'm sure, I'll hear from the girls as to what they thought as well. And so from here, yes, Maddie, thank you. And so so from here, I'm gonna, so the homework for next week is to read through chapter 21, and then I'll send a recap. And for anyone that couldn't be here, I'll have the recording and the replay available. Yes, Annika, thank you. And